Welcome to Speak with Purpose, a celebration of thought and influence, where bold ideas ignite action. Join Christine Gagnon and the TEDxCatawba community in shaping the future.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Gagnon, founder and organizer of TEDxCatawba. We're here today to introduce one of our esteemed speakers for our 2025 event to be held here in Hickory, North Carolina on June 14th at the Drendel Auditorium. I'm joined today by Dr. Ernest Brown, widely known as the Punk Rock Doc. He is a house call physician for the elderly and disabled in Washington, D.C. He's also the founder for Humans for Healthcare, a 501c3 charitable organization dedicated to restoring patient-centered medicine through direct care, advocacy, and advancing technologies. As a host and producer of the Ernest Medicine docuseries, he challenges the status quo in modern healthcare, bridging physicians and communications while integrating technology-driven solutions for better care. Welcome, Dr. Brown, or Dr. E, as I call you.
Thank you
Good
so much. Greatly
afternoon.
appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you for
afternoon,
joining
and
me on a weekend,
absolutely.
especially. Well,
It's always a pleasure. I know seeing you again when we first met, and now coming to this, it's a wonderful journey.
it really is. So I have to, of course, ask you for all of our listeners, tell me about the name, the Punk Rock Doc. That's just awesome.
So I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. I'm a family doc here. And back in the 80s, growing up in D.C. as a young youth, one of the resounding things for me was the music community. Punk rock was huge. Discord Records, Minor Threat, Fugazi, Bad Brains, all legends of punk rock here in the DC area. That has always been a chord for me that struck early and carries on even as my work as a physician. So it's a natural blend. Once people know that punk rock was kind of my origins, it only made sense in the style in which I practice. It kind of follows the same motto, even back from those days. So punk rock
I
doc,
love it.
it stuck.
Well, I definitely love it. So you have many names, Dr. E, Dr. Brown, Punk Rock Doc. And
Yeah.
we actually met in Washington, D.C., because not only do you do your docuseries and not only do you do your house calls for your clients and all the other things you do, but you are also kind of that on-call specialist where I was traveling in Washington and I was ill. And I remember that the hotel had called, the on-call doctor, if you will, and we had connected. And one thing that just shocked me was one, you were really responsive and you called right away, but that wasn't the shock. The next day you actually messaged me and you're like, hey, I just wanted to check in and make sure you're okay. And my jaw dropped because for me, I was just not used to that level of care. But I think that that one example speaks to your whole philosophy on medicine and care. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Because that's really special.
Yeah, so the reality is the way I practice, I don't really have any other choice. I chose to become a physician to care for patients, and to be able to do that in the healthcare system has been virtually impossible. So being fully independent, I'm affiliated with Johns Hopkins, Mayo, Cleveland, all these other esteemed organizations, but I'm fully independent. Kind of that punk rock nature stuck true. And the key is about really the relationship to have. Medicine is it's a science, but it's also a social service. So for myself, you know, I've been a patient myself, and I know that, when a time of need comes, you want somebody who's really going to care for you. And I've had experiences as a patient and a physician that I've been cared for and felt kind of, not so, no relationship there. It's just kind of factory work, check off a few boxes, bill the insurance companies, and you're done. For me, it's about the relationships. And, our time together now is proof of the relationship. So, it's very common, maybe I only see 4 patients a day, but at the same time, I'm following up with a whole slew of different patients. I just had a minister in town from Indonesia, and he had appendicitis. I took care of him. I made sure he got on his flight, made sure the medications that went with him were protected, and made sure when he got back home, he messaged me, let me know that everything was thumbs up. And that's true for, clients like Minister yourself, but also for my charity patients. I have done charity throughout my career as a house call physician, in large part because that's a civic duty to my community. And I feel that even with those clients, it's the same thing. It's the same relationship that you have with a patient. To me, it's also therapeutic for me because it means that, there's more value in having a relationship than a transaction. So for me, messaging you the next day, it might seem like I'm stalking you or something, but it is really with the best of intentions to, because look, I'm not a magician. I don't carry a magic wand, and when I try to provide care, I do want to know what happened. It helps me to become a better clinician too, because I see the end product of what I've done. And knowing that you got better meant a lot, I know, to you, but it also meant a lot to me. And
Oh,
that's
I
where
love
I find,
that.
yeah.
I didn't feel like you were stalking me, but but thank you. And I
Yes.
do feel like it's very true. Our relationship blossomed in so many different ways, not only from a physician patient, but friend, a colleague, collaborator, and it's magical. One of the things that you also said that maybe we should share with the audience is you're a multifaceted human being. That is making it simple. But on the medical side, and correct me if I'm not describing this in the right way, but you have this sort of, I always call you, Robin Hood behind closed doors, because you do a lot of charity work, but you also have this kind of high-end concierge service. And that I think is brought together by the concept of what we're doing for humans for healthcare. But can you talk a little bit more about that model and about your philosophy? Because it's really important, and it's something that I think is rare and maybe should be more common.
Yeah, for myself, when they call it concierge, I'm really meant to, for any client, but it is the concierge service is to be able to provide something that doesn't exist in healthcare. From the moment somebody is unwell and needs assistance until they're better, there's there's an opportunity to go on that journey with them and walking them in what could be a very stressful relationship in going to the hospital. They can have me as an advocate. They can have me as a counselor or an advisor. I can switch off into those different hats because as a concierge physician, I'm not bound by the clinic. You have to understand a clinic is a defined space. I'm directly there with the patient very often in their home, their hotel room, in their office. And I'm constantly on the go for whatever it needs that needs to get done. And that means my hours, there's no 9 to 5. It's usually as soon as I wake up, 4 o'clock in
Right.
the morning until I eventually fall asleep at night. And it's not a career or job. It's really something I breathe. That's the best way to put it. And I do this every day. It does make it challenging because there are certain things that I really want to focus myself on. But the concierge service is intended to give those clients reassurance that they've really got somebody in there for a fight to make sure that they get better. And trust me, the stories that I have, and that's a large part of the docu-series we're working on, Earnest Medicine, is to be able to show that it doesn't really matter who you are. If a healthcare system is broken, it's going to be a challenge to get good care. And I've certainly had clients, very high value clients, who shockingly just aren't getting good care. And that's why I get called, and I've been taking care of those VIPs and families for the last 22 years.
And you brought up the docu-series, which I think we should talk a little bit about with our audience, Earnest Medicine. And one thing I would say is I've watched some episodes myself and have been very impressed. And I might lead in to say that you're global when it comes to the docu-series. You're not just sort of exploring the United States, but you've traveled around and really looked at not only, it appears to me, different systems, but different ailments kind of in the context and the origin. It's almost like you're doing a science and a history lesson and maybe a little bit of a kind of political landscape, if you will, in terms of healthcare. So can you talk
Yes.
about this journey? How did that start? How would you describe the docu-series, and where do you hope
Yeah.
to take it? So the kind of past, present, and future.
Yeah. So earnest medicine, it's not a title I chose. I was kind of vetoed out of this. It's EARNEST, not my name, Ernest, but it fits with what the intent is. If one were to describe the series, it's really taking viewers on a journey to see what healthcare is here in the US, but then hopefully expand on different topics. We did sickle cell. We're traveling to other countries. We're going to Turkey. We're going to Albania. And we're learning about different sciences and different methodologies that are used outside of the US, like stem cells and in vitro fertilization, at some fascinating opportunities to really share those experiences. I, as a physician, am constantly learning. And in the healthcare system that we have here in the US, it's just kind of factory work. And it's kind of, after a while, it's kind of boring. So some of this is also to inspire younger physicians to just break out and do things, take risks. And if anyone were to say the series is kind of like an Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, it's really meant to get out there,
Right,
get
right.
off the sofa and just get out. And the intention is that we will grow an audience and, as you mentioned, politically, in a sense, to provide some advocacy. Specifically, when it comes to certain types of treatments, stem cells, there's tremendous things that are going in other countries, and we really need to bring that to the US. And also IVF, in vitro fertilization for young women to be able to preserve their eggs at a younger age is more than just a clinical issue. It's also a social issue. And I hope to be able to really the series is for the viewers, for the patients, to provide a voice. And I'm just kind of that Sherpa or guide along the way, wherever it takes us. And I'm excited about it. We
Me
have a great team.
too. I know that you were traveling recently. So, can you tell me about what are you most excited about? That's I know you're in your studio and you probably have so
Mhm.
much footage that, you're working through. What are you
Yes.
most excited about that you have coming out in the next couple of months?
So just came back from the Blue Origin launch. I had two of my clients flying on that, and so that was nice to be invited, and that's a
Oh,
perk
wow.
certainly. And my dad worked for NASA for 44 years, so it was a great experience. I used to be a little kid watching the Apollo series launch up from Florida, so to see that, my dad would have been tickled pink. But then taking it to, particularly in terms of treatment, stem cells, I'm very excited with technologies that are being developed and being used in other countries. I'm more of a physician scientist, so I'm poring over all of the data and trying to wrap my head around this because there are certain treatments for certain conditions that stem cells clearly show an advantage over traditional therapies. And when medications and other things aren't working, we need, patients should have the right to choose. And I think bringing stem cells, we'll be going to, particularly in Istanbul, we're going to be meeting with a stem
Mm.
cell lab. We'll have that series. It'll be several episodes. And more importantly, we'll be learning about their education system for their physicians and more about kind of the social constructs. Plenty of physicians do house calls in Istanbul and in the rural areas. And so we'll probably be tagging along with a few physicians there as well. Then we'll switch over quickly to Albania to talk about IVF. And that really is to kind of really show the contrast between what IVF has become here in the United States as a profitable venture. Large in vitro fertilization groups are now really owned by the bank. They're not private physician owned, and so they have a clear commercial profit they have to attend to. So again, it's really just taking viewers on a journey to discover new things together, having fun. We'll certainly be learning about cultures and the history of medicine and everywhere we go.
Mm.
And I'm half Turkish, so there's a little bit of a tug from that. And we will take it back to the U.S. and share it to everyone who's interested in these subjects.
That's wonderful. I could be misquoting, but I believe that on my social media, there was a reel about a particular hospital in Turkey that would do like
Yes.
full on lab, start to finish, full body assessment. And it was something that was affordable. And I think
Oh,
when you and I talked, we first met, you're like, you should do like full labs. You're young. Like, let's kind of, and then we looked at the price and I was like, yeah, no.
yeah,
And that's sort of sad because I was like, oh, well, I
yeah.
could take a vacation. And for, I think the guy said it was, I'm making it up, but it wasn't very expensive for him
No.
to go to Turkey and kind of do that. How do you feel about that? That like we want to do all these things and we
Mhm.
should do all of these things, but they're just really expensive. And I hate to raise this kind of point on a podcast,
Yeah.
but it's sort of frustrating.
No, and it's frustrating for me as a physician because I don't have the tools that I need that I can actually provide. And preventative medicine is the key. Treating a disease when it's already ravaged the body and expecting to return to good health is really what the healthcare system is. It's about profiting off the illness of patients. And I think
Mm.
really preventive medicine should be more funded to a greater extent, and avenues for being able to talk with patients, test, a variety of things. You can go, medical tourism is a big subject in many countries now that are accepting tourists who will spend a vacation, getting dental work, hair transplants, all these different things. I'm more for not the non-cosmetic and the preventative, and they can spend a week there and they'll stay at a 4-star, 5-star hotel at a beach and having these things done and relaxing, a totally different environment. And I can tell you when I was in Istanbul and I was actually visiting one of the hospitals and just seeing the relationship between the patient and the physician, I was almost angry when I came back to the US because there's no hope or opportunity for that. And I think we need to come back to that, that's another intent, is to really show those exchanges and really understand why is it so different and difficult here in the US to talk about preventative medicine when clearly it'll benefit all of us.
I totally agree. And I think, I'm very patriotic. And so when I think about having to go somewhere else, obviously I'm familiar with medical tourism, but I'm sort of used to not viewing it in that we would do it from the US outward. And it makes me upset because, like, we have so many resources and tools and technology here. It's just, the economic model, in my opinion, just isn't conducive. The model itself, to your point on preventative, it's more like, okay, we'll just wait for something bad to happen and treat the symptoms as opposed to you as a holistic person. So maybe one thing, so I'm oversharing, but that's okay. So my husband and I were like, we need to do more kind of like biohacking things and, get in front of aging. I just turned 44 this past week. And so I'm assuming that you buy off on some of that you can actually really get into that kind of biohacking preventative zone and make a difference on the front end. Is that your view?
Very much so. I think it's, a physician's duty is to inform the patient, but the patient must also come informed. I just attended a conference in Florida, and that conference, I actually did biological age testing with True Diagnostics, and it provides insight. And it's like, oh, okay, Ernest, you're gonna have to move in this direction if you really want to maintain a good health. And I would say that, really doing any of these is, it has to be very methodical. If you're going to go
Mm.
down that path where you're really investing in yourself, and you really have to think of it like that, then you have to be all in. There can be, if you are really trying to investigate these things and work on strategies, and you can look at others that are doing the same thing. There are plenty of people who are biohacking. Now, some, clearly there's going to be a commercial plug at some point, but
Right.
I'm always going on to like TikTok and YouTube, and I'm constantly like seeing what others are doing, not only
Hmm.
just as a physician, but somebody who is aging as well. And I clearly know that there are certain things that do benefit me, and I know that if I choose to invest in myself, I will see the benefit of it.
I love that. I will maybe related, but switching gears. I was just at TED a couple weeks ago where I broke my foot, unfortunately, but that's okay. And there was a talk, and I'm probably going to botch this, but it was related to the exploration of certain health issues and using AI, in particular, large language models, to potentially evaluate potential treatment through a more methodical process. And so, do you see the potential with AI and technology to do better diagnosis or preventative medicine? And, is there anything you'd like to share on that topic?
Oh, certainly won't plug any one LLM, but I use it every day. There isn't a time in some regards I'm using it to do further research. Sometimes I'm even just using it to come up with a battle plan for a patient who's
Hmm.
really struggling with controlling, their diabetes or their weight. The big part of this is you have a new tool, and it's just a matter of how to use that tool. And I think as this gets refined and look, all of these models, if you train it and you give it the right data, it will supersede so many things. And you'll hear quick snippets of, well, there won't need to be any more doctors anymore with AI. I'm like,
Mm.
fine, that's great. If people are healthy, perfect. I'm okay. I can I can say,
It's very
but
altruistic.
yeah. Well, I am the Lorax, so I'm
Yes.
trying to speak for the trees here. So the
Hmm.
big issue is using any tool, whether it's AI, certainly is something that has to be a discussion. And I think you're going to see it refine. I'm very excited about it in terms of in terms of biohacking, but like stem cell research in
Mm.
particular. I'm very interested as a physician scientist, stem cells with peptide sciences, and ultimately quantum computing, because we simply just do not have the capacity to fully comprehend all of the biology that's involved in staying in good health. So we are actually working with that. We have a new project with Humans for Healthcare where we are developing a research lab, and that will be the focus, those three arms.
You made a great comment because as you were talking, I was thinking in my head, I'm not a physician. Maybe someday I'll go to medical school because, I love school. I'm always in
Don't recommend
school
it.
24/7. But you said, there are things like quantum, perhaps like that, help us evaluate things that cannot fully comprehend. And I think about maybe not quantum because that's not really my area of expertise. I sort of superficially understand it. But if we look at generative artificial intelligence and the models that we talked about and in the diabetes example, it just gives you so much more breadth and depth when you're evaluating something, because as a human brain, it's like, okay, you can't kind of compute that fast, right? And so if you have this additional intelligence assisting you to say, I've looked wide, I've looked deep, have you considered this? It's such a great sanity check, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And it's exciting. I mean, I
Right.
can't even describe. I'm like, by looking at the potential for this, I'm just really excited for the next few years. And that's why we're pivoting to doing more research on stem cells and peptide sciences. So, I mean, and clearly there are plenty of others. There's always going to be the for-profit, but we're approaching it as a nonprofit independent. So there's a group that we're working with called Real Labs. They're based in Istanbul, and we have opportunities to bring all of that right here. And it's fantastic. I'm excited.
That's fabulous. And so we'll have at our TEDxCatawba this summer we have an AI researcher that I've shared with you is coming out to do
Oh
a
yeah.
talk, as well as a partner at PwC. So we'll be able to kind of dig into that a little bit more. So you are coming all the way to Hickory, North Carolina to spend time with us, which we sincerely appreciate. And I'd love to ask you, what inspired you to take the TEDx stage? Why now?
I think we're at a pivotal point where we have seen healthcare in the United States and the extent to which, and I think of it as an investment in our own country, being patriotic. It's just what Hippocrates taught. Hippocrates just didn't teach medicine. He made his country stronger and healthier, so it could persist and not be invaded in times of illness. I think really this TED Talk is an opportunity to speak up, and I want to be able to share some experiences. One in particular I'll be going through and sharing with those is something that I think is very important to an aging population, and I think that if there isn't somebody to speak out about these things, then we'll be kind of stuck in this hamster wheel. And I just want to be able to crack the door open enough so that unless others can really come along and join us on this journey, then it just won't get any better. That's and I'm getting older. I'd like to leave something behind, and I would hope that this would be part of that.
Well, I'm so honored that you have made the decision that our stage is the one that you'd like to share that message on. And so Dr. E, Dr. Brown, Punk Rock Doc, I am so honored to have you here today on the podcast, and we are delighted to have you coming to visit us in June. So I just want to thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to next steps.
Absolutely. No, I'm very excited, and great to see everybody there as well. Right.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week for another episode of Speak with Purpose to get insights into our speakers, sponsors, and partners for TEDxCatawba. You can also learn more about our independently organized TEDx event and purchase your tickets on our website, TEDxCatawba.com. We're also on social media. It's TEDxCatawba. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thank you so much and see you next week.